Financial Planner, follow us on YouTube.
The economy declined further and nobody noticed. Get prepared. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, as we can see, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the Fed, and the corporate media, they're all out there telling us how great the employment market is and how everyone has a job. And they do mention it, but not that often, and they don't dig deep into the numbers to explain why there are 95,385,000 Americans not in the labor force. Now, this is a new record, and it was reached in the latest set of data, which was released by the BLS. And there is a bigger issue to all this. Now, a lot of people think, well, a lot of people are retiring, and this is why we're seeing a lot of people out of the labor force. Retail, which is actually not true. It feels like we're going back to retail, where they're saying that everything is moving to online, and Amazon is taking the business away from all the other businesses, and online business is only 10% of total retail. The same thing's happening with the employment numbers. Everyone is not retiring. That number is not all retirees. That number is made up of people who can't find work, who want to work, but are just not counted. So the government decided, since they haven't been on an interview in 4 weeks, we just won't count them. They've given up. But if you're continually sending out your resume and you're still trying to find that job, well, you're just not, but you still want a job. And what we're seeing right now is that the number of Americans who are not in the labor force has increased since 2007. And it has increased by a stunning 17.8 million people. Now, this is an incredible number, and most of this increase occurred during a time that we were supposed to be in a recovery. Now, think about this for a second. They were telling us that we were recovering from 2008, going from 2009, 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And 17.8 million dropped out of the labor force. And this makes no sense whatsoever. Now, this data coincides with the reality that many Americans are too broke to afford a home to purchase. Think about that. Now, let's start putting all this together. People who are working today, they might have a part-time job. They're considered a full-time employee. If they have 2 part-time, that's 2 full-time jobs. If they haven't been on an interview within 4 weeks, they're just not counted. You see how this is working. If they lose that part-time job, and it's depending on how many hours they're working and how much they're getting paid per week, they might not even be counted as losing a job, but they were counted as getting a full-time job when they got the part-time job. So you can see how they can manipulate all this. Now, we take all of this and then we move it towards the retail industry. Now, they were trying to convince us that retail was suffering because of online business. Now, yes, online business is growing. It has been growing for quite a while, because we can see right now that more and more people are going online. They're not doing dial-ups anymore. They have direct connections. People are using their smartphones to buy items. But again, it's very small at this point. It's only 10% of the entire retail industry. And we're seeing a lot of brick and mortar stores that have an online presence still not making it, which again makes no sense whatsoever. And if we look very closely at this, we can see, like Kmart, Sears, JCPenney, The Limited, they're all having problems. Now, what's very interesting is the toy maker Mattel. They are reeling from the poor retail environment. Now, if everything is moving to online, why would Mattel be hurting so badly? Now, we know Toys R Us is not doing well. Again, they have an online presence. The reason why these manufacturers who are creating the products, the reason why they're hurting is because people aren't purchasing the way they used to, because they don't have the jobs, because the unemployment rate, no matter what number they tell us, is not that number. The whole thing has been manipulated to convince us that the economy is doing a lot better than it really is. And if you really look, the economy has declined even further, and no one's even really noticing this. The corporate media is completely staying away from it. And when we look at Mattel, and we'll use Mattel as an example, we see dolls. Guess what? Worldwide, they are down in sales. Barbies, they're down by 7%. American Girl dolls were down 30%. Monster High, Polly Pocket were down 42%. And it's not just Mattel. There's many other toy manufacturers that are not doing well. Actually, a lot of manufacturers that are creating clothing, creating other products, they are not doing well. And this has nothing to do with, everything moving from brick and mortar to online. This has to do with people not going out and purchasing goods. And what we're seeing is there's going to be other retailers that are on the verge of having problems. Bed Bath & Beyond. They're moving into that realm where they're slated to have problems. Now, a lot of people thought when Linens and Things went out of business that Bed Bath & Beyond would just take up all the slack and they would get all the sales. But this, again, is not happening. People are just not purchasing the way they used to because they don't have the jobs. This is why when we see the labor participation rate move to 95,385,000 people, those people are 95 million. And we're just using the BLS number. This number is actually higher than that, but let's just use this number. They're not going out and purchasing items. Those people who retired, who are battling with inflation, and those people who have their pensions, and they're very worried about their pensions right now, this is going to be a huge problem because if you look, the older generation, they're getting part-time jobs because they are seeing inflation. Automobile insurance is going up. Well, they feel that. Health costs are going up. Food is going up. The cost of automobiles are going up. And when you look, you can see that all these things, well, they take a gouge out of the money they're receiving. Remember, a lot of these people are on fixed incomes. And if inflation is hitting, they have to get another job to make up the difference. And this is what we're seeing. And if you look, the economy since 2008 might have improved a little bit with a lot of manipulation to make us think that it improved. But over the long haul here, we found out that it was one gigantic illusion. And now it's declining very rapidly. It's accelerating. And we track this, and a lot of people said, no, retail seems like it's still doing well. It's going to online. Housing's still doing well. But now you can see we're coming down on the other side of the bubbles, where we've been pumped up all the way to 2014. I think it started in 2015. 2016, it got worse. We're at the top. It was starting to come down. Here we are in 2017. It's starting to come down even further. 2018 is going to get worse. And you know how a roller coaster works. Slow moving up, fast moving down. Well, we're heading down right now, and it's going to pick up speed. We see Russia right now, well, they're gobbling up a lot of gold. They're dumping a lot of U.S. treasuries, and they're purchasing gold. In the third quarter of 2017, the Central Bank of Russia bought about 63 tons of the precious metal, bringing its gold stockpile to around 1,778 tons as the end of September. And what they're seeing right now is that they're continually dumping treasuries and ramping up their gold purchases. Now, if they stay on course, they might even bypass China as the world's fifth biggest holder of bullion in early 2018. And we'll have to watch this to see what happens with this, because we know that China, Russia, India, and many other countries, they're continually accumulating a lot of gold. And the reason for this is because they understand that this is going to ensure the country's wealth. They realize they need this gold to back up whatever they have, their financial, economic system. They need to have this gold. The United States, they're depending on paper and ink. The European nations, they're depending on paper and ink. Not every single country, because we see Germany, they repatriated their gold. A lot of countries are saying they want their gold back. And what we're seeing right now is that there's a lot of countries out there, especially those who are starting up the new system. They realize, when I say they're starting up the new system, everything's moving from the west to the east to China. And they realize, they've been setting this up for a very long time, they realize they're going to need gold to ensure the rest of the world that they can handle the new system. And this is what the central bankers have done. They always transfer the wealth to where it needs to go. They always transfer the manufacturing where it needs to go when they start a new system, when they see their system dying, because their systems are created to fail after 40 to 45 years. And this is what we're seeing right now. And they've transferred everything from the West to the East. They understood that this was going to be needed to be done. And this is why they've done this over the many, many years. And I remember going back to the 80s, the early 90s, when they said there'll be no more middle class. People were laughing. And here we are today, where you see the middle class completely gone. They also talked about manufacturing, how it was leaving America. People were laughing like, oh no, I'll never leave America. And slowly but surely, every single company was leaving America, and they were setting up shop across the ocean. This was in preparation for the system coming down. They knew it was going to eventually come down. They knew they were going to have to set up a whole new system. And this is what central bankers do. They move their entire system someplace else. They don't care what country. They have no allegiance to people or to countries. And they set it up. And they do this very slowly. They make everyone think that, this is happening because of this reason or the other. Their real reason is because their system only lasts for about 40 to 45 years. And they know eventually they have to set up shop someplace else. And this is what we've been seeing. This is why you need to be prepared and ready. This is why countries are getting prepared and ready. This is why we see the economy failing, and it's accelerating. I mean, it's not even declining slowly. It's starting to accelerate, and it's going to get a lot worse come the beginning of next year, where you're going to see a lot of stores. We're going to see a lot of information come out saying that, yeah, all these stores bankrupt. This store doesn't exist. This store doesn't exist. And you're going to see a lot of empty malls. You're going to see a lot of empty strip malls. And the economy is going to be reeling at that time. And of course, the Fed, the government, they're going to try to keep everything together. But it's going to fall apart very, very quickly, because guess what? They can't control people getting jobs. They can't control people spending. And all the manipulation they do is going to make no difference at that time. So get prepared. It's coming.